wrestling promoter throughout North America. I kick every one of their asses. Fraud, they're messing with me. In a court of law, I took on the United States of America, and I kicked her ass. I took on WCW, and it took me a while, but I kicked their asses. Not because I was an asshole, no. Ask me, Mr. McMahon, what's your secret? More than any one quality that makes me the successful man that I am, ruthless aggression. So I want to know here tonight, as you stand here on my ring, which one of you has that quality? Who among you has that one single ingredient? Who has enough ruthless aggression?
Yeah.
PPA, no info for the DEA, federal agents mad.
Hello, Backbone Wrestling Network listeners. Wow, monumentous occasion here. The first episode of the Ruthlessly Aggressive Podcast here on this brand new podcast network feed buffet that we call the Backbone. Logan, how does it feel to be here on the Backbone?
I mean, the backbone on the backbone, it can't get better than that, right? I'm just playing. I know we are all collectively the backbone, but it's great to be here on the new feed. Great to be still talking to you about terrible 2003 Raws and mass SmackDowns.
I was going to say, we have a new setting here, new energy, but guess what? We can't change what the Ruthless Aggression Era is and where we are in that. And that is in August 2003, which it's been a bit of a rough stretch. We had the pay-per-view that ripped, was very good. Mm-hmm. But the TV has been a bit mundane. And I think it's going to continue as it will be a little mundane from Moline. We are in Moline for Raw. We looked this up just now before we got on because we need a refresh on the Quad Cities. If you can send an addressed envelope to Ruthlessly Aggressive Podcast, P.O. Box 45872, and name the Quad Cities, we will send you a t-shirt. Not true. But anyway.
Because we don't have them, but.
Correct. We don't have anything. Who knows? Maybe Backbone will have some merch soon. Throw it out there. Make it happen, Mr. Kid. But the Quad Cities, Davenport, Bettendorf are the Iowa contingent because, as you mentioned before, you knew this. We have two of the Quad Cities are in Iowa and two are in Illinois. So we have Davenport and Bettendorf in Iowa, and then Moline and Rock Island, Illinois.
And of course, Davenport is where Seth Rollins was born and raised, and is billed from in the WWE. So it's an interesting little tidbit there.
There you go. So,
they had introduced it as from the Quad Cities, and I was like, "What the fuck does that mean?" So, we did a little research free pod and figured that out. I think you kind of knew a little bit more than I did, but I was unaware of what that meant because I had never heard of that before. So,
yeah, I was familiar with it. I just forgot what all four was. I knew Davenport, and I was familiar with Moline. The other two slipped. There's a Bob Seger song where he says, I think in Fire Down Below, he says something about Moline. So I always think of that song. Maybe I'll throw it in this episode.
Wasn't it a Dolly Parton song, too? I mean, never mind. That's Jolene. Sorry.
Moline. Fire Down Below, great song. I think it might be maybe about a prostitute. I don't know. But
there's always a chance that's the case.
Right. But anyway, well, let's dive in here. We've talked enough geography. Let's get into it. So we are Raw emanating from Moline. This would be August 11, 2003. No real tidbits I have news-wise. All the Meltzer all he talked about on this issue seemed to be OVW. He was very jazzed up about OVW here. Apparently he said something was whatever the OVW from this week or whatever episode was like the greatest OVW episode in history. So maybe we'll have to check it out. We can do a special podcast on that. Maybe that'll be episode 100. We'll watch OVW.
OVW episode August whatever 2003.
Right. But so we open this, and the big thing they hype in the beginning of this is that we're on Spike, which I'm not gonna lie, Logan, maybe it's because of the TNA pod, but I had assumed we've been on Spike for a while already. I'm not gonna lie, or something. But
yeah, when they made a big deal about that, I was like, haven't we been on Spike for a minute? But I guess this is when they officially make the transition from TNN to Spike, somewhere in this realm. But I mean, it's basically the same thing. It's supposed to still be a channel for men or whatever. So yeah.
Right. No, they just have like a Spike sign with like lit up with little bulbs hanging in the entrance. So, but anyway, Spike, we're in the Spike hour. Right. We're in the adult party cartoon is following Stripperella. Anyway, so we open the show with Eric Bischoff. He's coming to gloat about beating Shane McMahon last week. He says he respects all the McMahons, Vince, Linda, and her voluptuous breasts that he loves so much. And even Stephanie, as much as they had their battles, he respects them. All of them except for Shane. He calls him the Frank Sinatra Jr. Quite a reference of wrestling. He continues to ramble. Boomer Sooner hits, and we see the return of good old JR, who walks down the ramp, recovered from his vicious burn. So a bit of a surprise. They didn't really hype this up. Wasn't really expecting to see him back yet. He is all full of piss and vinegar. He accuses Eric of setting him up. He says he's not going to file charges against Kane because Kane is too important to Raw. So really take over for the team there for the betterment of the show by not pressing charges on the man that lit him on fire. But he says what he is going to do. Would you like to tell the listeners what JR says he's going to do to Bischoff?
He's going to sue his ass.
I'm going to sue your ass.
For all he's worth, which I would love to know what that would be. So
civilly, criminally, which
I think he even says emotionally too.
But that has Eric on his heels. He starts kissing ass and saying that, pretending as if he had no idea the coach had taken JR's spot, tells him to get the hell out of JR's seat. This is ridiculous. He should respect JR more. And here's our co-general manager, Austin, who comes out, says he's glad to have JR back and convinces him not to sue Eric. But he says that in return, Eric will have a match tonight. He gives him a contract. He tells Eric he might want to read it. Eric kind of blows it off and says, no big deal. I understand what this is. Not a big deal. But Eric doesn't realize that he has just signed himself up with a match against Kane. He assumed that he would be facing Shane again, this time in an actual match. But he unknowingly signs a match against Kane. So he's so obviously he's freaked out at this because Kane is a psychopath. So I guess the logic here is that this is like this is going to be the comeuppance for Eric. It does seem like with this whole thing, and this is another opening segment. I ran through it pretty quick because there's not a ton of substance to it. Like I hit all the major points, but it's another like 15-minute long opening segment. Like they do not get down to this very quickly. It's a lot of like rambling and like, back and forth between all this just to get to the main points. But I do think with this Kane stuff, they need to figure out like, what is the main focus of this? It seems like right now all they're worried about is like what's going to be the hook for each week. Like Bischoff's facing Shane. Now this week he has to face Kane. Like I don't know what the end game is with this. Like I feel like they need to figure out what is the actual focus and what's the, what is the Kane stuff really going to lead to? It seems like all they're worried about is like what's going to be the gimmick of the week with this. And it always seems to be like Bischoff versus someone. And I feel like it's getting a little stale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just saying, Kane's facing RVD at SummerSlam. They've already announced that and all that stuff. So, it would seem he's facing Shane. If you pay attention to weekly TV, they're not really, RVD's not really involved per se with all this stuff. So, But yeah, I mean, I think they need to kind of focus more on that than they do him versus Shane, which I think they're obviously building towards some kind of Bischoff Shane fight again, something in that ballpark at least. But yeah, this one like kind of like the last week that we talked about. This one went a little long in the tooth as well. I love that all it took for JR to not want to sue Bischoff is to have him face Kane. Like, there's no way that that's going to blow up in his face,
Right.
and not make it not worth it at all. But we'll see how it works out later. But yeah, I think I would have had to have had a little bit more of something to give up a lawsuit of me almost getting burned alive. So Eric was also wearing a Van Dutch leather jacket tonight. Had a big Van Dutch leather patch on it. So styling and profiling for sure. But yeah, if I thought JR was coming back, I would think they would probably announce it ahead of time, but they didn't, and it was a surprise for sure. But considering how much they've talked about him and stuff like that, you would think they would have announced it ahead of time. But we'll see how this Bischoff Kane thing goes. But yeah, this was another long segment to get to a match that probably isn't going to be much of a match, even if it does happen.
Yeah, it's a growing trend, like with the RVD stuff, and we'll see it with some other things as they build to the pay-per-view. The way they're building these feuds is strange to me. Like you said, it's really should be about RVD, even if Shane is the eventual goal. Like, they were tag team partners for a long time. Like, why not focus on that and their relationship? And, did RVD play any role in Kane going insane or whatever? Like, there's something you can go with that, but it's very much an afterthought. Like I said, they're just focused on whatever's the hook for Raw that week. They're not really thinking about the build of SummerSlam. It's real weird.
Yeah, and I mean, if you want to kind of put out there that maybe Kane and Shane will face each other eventually, do what you did last week, but leave it alone, and then really start hardcore building towards RVD and Kane, and kind of have them interact and have a promo by somebody or by one of them talking about the other and kind of where they're at, but they continue to involve him with Shane, and like you said, it'll probably happen eventually, but obviously that's not the plan for SummerSlam. So definitely weird for sure.
All right, we'll get to a tale of two openers as we have, the opening match. We'll have tags on each show, but one is not like the other. So we will open this with a mixed tag team match where we'll have Stacy Keibler and Scott Steiner versus Rico and Jackie here. He goes about like you would expect. Rico gets beat up by Scott Steiner for a minute. We do then we get the two ladies in there. We do a pinfall reversal sequence. So the King and the fans can horn out for a little bit as they're doing like kind of sunset flip roll up. So both their asses are sticking up in the air. So King's real excited about that. Stacy ends up in peril after Rico gets a cheap shot. And here comes Tess to brawl with Steiner. They end up going into the crowd, which leaves Stacy for dead. And that's kind of all she wrote on this one. That's kind of how we end it. So pretty lame match. Steiner's pissed off. He says this is bullshit. He wants to finish it right now. That's meaning his feud with Test. And I was thinking, like, please, God, dude, like, please finish this. And of course, Test says they're not going to do it tonight because the heel. They have to wait until next week. And but he wants Steiner to put Stacy on the line, as if he couldn't see this coming. And Stacy accepts before Steiner can say anything. And I feel like we did this already, maybe a little bit. Maybe I'm misremembering or don't care enough, or I was getting ahead of myself. Either way, the match blew real hard, and I don't care about the Steiner Test stuff. It needs to end it quickly. I went a half a star in the match.
Yeah, I just went one. It was not very good, like you said. Yeah, this is a story we need finished. We needed Cody to finish this story in current time, but this may be worse in the needing to finish a story situation. But the worst part is if Test wins, they'll probably keep fighting because then Steiner will want to have Stacy back. So probably worst case scenario to have that storyline on the line. Unless Steiner wins, of course. But we'll see how that works out. I love that Steiner immediately didn't have any of Rico's shit. Rico tries to do the flamboyant stuff and Steiner just grabs him and fucking chucks him around the ring for a few minutes. Like you said, the women's part of the match is just a lot of roll ups and a lot of choreographed strikes and stuff like that. So it looked like, two girls that aren't super comfortable with being in there and shouldn't probably wrestle very often. But yeah, you do get a little TNA, so that's always not a bad thing. Like we said, Tess gets involved, and the finish is kind of Rico kind of pulls Stacy on the top rope, and then Jackie busts out the Hogan leg drop for the win. So I thought that was interesting for sure. So, but yeah, for the fact that Steiner kind of kills Rico at the beginning, I gave it 1 star. But yeah, pretty bad match all around.
You also find TNA on Highway to the Impact Zone right here on the Backbone Wrestling Network.
There you go.
All right. Now, I think we're recording this a bit early, but in current times, Ric Flair, who we're about to talk about, has been in the news for acting like a jackass, but he's here, and he's pissed about Goldberg and this rematch that he has to have with Goldberg. And then he's even more pissed because Austin said if Evolution interferes, they're going to be suspended. But Triple H comes in and says they keep getting screwed. He's getting kind of tired of it. Randy reassures them that at the Elimination Chamber, he doesn't have to face 5 men. He has to face 4 because Randy's on his side. Randy's going to have his back. And tonight they decide that they are going to start screwing with everyone else rather than getting screwed over. So I actually thought this was not like a bad little team meeting between them and kind of them. Just them scheming about what they're going to do. I don't think this is horrible. I haven't hated Evolution, honestly. Since they debuted, I don't think it's been, the Triple H alone stuff, is a little sketchy, but I think Evolution as a thing is not, I think they've been presented okay. Like I haven't minded their stuff so much.
Yeah. I mean, they haven't really overused him either. They've been building Orton, which is what they should be doing. And Triple H has really been on the back burner for a while now. He hadn't had a ton of feuds because of they didn't have a pay-per-view there for a while. I think he's been dealing with some injuries. He still is, obviously. He mentions the torn groin or the strained groin or whatever he says in this segment. So they kind of put that out in the open that he's playing hurt for sure. But yeah, I think that's why it hasn't been very bad. They haven't really overexposed him or they haven't really been using them other than, kind of trying to start getting Orton over by having him have a match pretty much every week. But that's a good thing. That's good to use as a young talent to kind of try to get him over and show what he can do in the ring and all that. So, they've done a good job of presenting him since they kind of really, really formed. They've kind of been, connected for, a while, but now that they're like really a group. I agree with you. They've presented them pretty well, and this kind of laid out what they were going to do for the night. So, not a bad little segment, like you said.
Mm-hmm. All right, we see Kane arrive in the paddy wagon, so he's in the building, and then we head to the ring where we believe we're going to get the Dudleys versus La Resistance. It was that or a singles match. I can't really tell. Either way,
it was going to be a tag.
Yeah, I thought so. But mercifully, we do not get that. So I was very thrilled about that because before the match can really start, La Resistance kind of lay them out with the flag. Just lay them out, like beat their asses. Then they get the wine out and start chugging some, I believe the coach has some French wine. I thought it would be champagne at first, but I guess wine is pretty French also. But they start chugging that. But I actually think this is maybe the best La Resistance's look since they debuted. Like my big issue with them is like they never make them seem threatening. Like I get their chicken shit heels, but you need to make them look like legitimate. And I thought this was like the most legitimate they were, probably because they didn't have to have an actual match, and that's their biggest weakness. But just them being vicious, laying them out with the flag, and then chugging the wine, I thought was a nice little touch. Like spraying that everywhere just made them look like assholes. But they actually look somewhat tough for once, which was new. So actually, this is maybe my favorite La Resistance segment we've seen since they debuted, which is a low bar, but still.
Yeah, exactly. This is a pretty good beatdown. They obviously bury him under the American flag. I think Bubba or Devon had done something to that. I don't know if they buried him under the French flag, but they beat the shit out of him with it. So maybe basically the same thing. But the Dudleys are going to come back, being the great Americans that they are, and be pissed next week when when they get when they recover from this attack and come back next week and attack these French bastards. So, but yeah, I think that's definitely the best they've been presented, kind of as ass kickers and assholes for drinking the wine like after they laid them out.
Yep. All right. So continuing on, we head backstage for some hijinks because we see Goldust. He approaches Molly Holly and talks about her winning the title and says she's just like him. She loves gold. But he wants her to meet his good pal, the very not boring Lance Storm. Lance Storm then appears on camera. He's in the Goldust makeup, looking ridiculous with his buzz cut. So Lance can't really remember what Goldust has coached him to say, so he has to read off a card just like he always does. And he tells Molly, congratulations on your huge ass. He does the stuttering, but very robotically. Ass. Before he can finish, she slaps him, thinking he's making a rude comment. But of course, Logan, he meant to say your huge ascension to the top of the ranks of the Divas division. Goldust tells him to shake it off, no big deal, because they've got kielbasa and midgets to party tonight. So, so there you go. Interesting use of these guys as both pretty, I think, talented wrestlers, but we will not see them in the ring. We just see them in this silliness. But I don't know. It was just good old-fashioned Goldust silliness, if that's what you're into. But, you know, it was kind of goofy.
Yeah. I don't know how much it does for either guy, but I think these segments end up being pretty funny for the most part because, Goldust just has such good timing and has really perfected the little stutter thing that he does, and obviously now he's passing it on to Storm. So, but yeah, these segments are pretty funny, but I don't really know how much it helps either guy in the long run. I guess it's a trade-off of whether it's going to be funny or whether it's actually going to do anything for anybody, which I don't think it really does in the long run.
Yeah, they're both pretty entertaining, I have to say. Like, I do like Storm's wooden personality. Huge ass. So he's good there.
Ascension is what I meant to say.
We then pivot to HBK and Kevin Nash talking shop. So this is like a tonal switch as they're like being real serious bros here. Nash talking about the hair versus hair match, says his main ain't going anywhere. Then they debate who's going to win the title in the Elimination Chamber. Goldberg then pops in and thanks him for stepping in and having his back, but I don't think anything of it because he plans on winning the belt at SummerSlam, and they kind of end it there. They say like, no, we're going to get it, and they all kind of just have like a stare off. I don't know. I thought this was real corny. Like they were all very hammy, like almost like trying to all be a little bit too serious, and it felt very forced. Just not the best stuff, I think, from any of these guys. It felt very, hammy is the best way I could say. Just too much. It felt very unnatural.
Yeah, definitely a bro session. And Goldberg, I kind of can be okay with it if it's just Shawn and Nash. They're actually bros and brothers and good friends in real life. So I could let them get away with that, but Goldberg going over and broing it up with him is just like, nah, fam. I don't need that. So yeah, I mean, it that they keep trying to humanize Goldberg, and it's just that's just not what they need to do. He needs to be a machine and a monster and just run through people, but they keep trying to make him just be another guy.
Yeah, the only thing I took for it was like novel to see HBK and Goldberg face off. That was interesting, but what they were talking about was like completely generic.
Yeah, and Nash needed the we'll get to that when we get to the hair versus hair match, but Nash's hair is very unkempt, so I think he could be due for a haircut, even if a stipulation wouldn't have brought it to be, but we'll see when we get that match next week.
You don't like my flowing locks, Logan? That's my Nash.
I mean, it's just a little unkempt. I probably needed to run a comb through it, and it just didn't work out that night.
All right, we hear Booker T's music hit, but unfortunately, it's not Booker T. It is Christian, and we get a surprise here. I wonder. I would need somebody who's good at the wrestling trivia to tell me. I don't know when the last time we had a title change at a house show, but Christian has apparently won the Intercontinental title from Booker T at a house show in Des Moines, Iowa. We hear that Booker T had a herniated disc, so he was weakened in the match. So, of course, that's why he dropped the title. He's dealing with that injury, so they kind of dropped the title. Interesting move to do it on a house show, though. I don't know if they're trying to like maybe inject a little bit of life into the house show stuff, make people think something could happen, but. I don't know if you have any knowledge of this, but I have no idea. I guess I could look it up, but I'm lazy. Who was the last? What was the last house show title switch?
Oh God, I have no clue. I'd have to look it up. Maybe we can answer that trivia question when we come back to the next episode. I'm sure Grooney will let us know whenever he listens to the episode for sure. But yeah, it is interesting they did it on a house show, but I'm guessing his injury was bad enough to where they needed to get it off of him, and they needed to do it like right then. And I'm gonna guess that's probably why he wasn't. I don't know if it was last episode we talked about. He was missing, and they had just got back from like the Australia or UK tour or whatever it was. I'm assuming that's why he was missing then as well. But it's probably to spice up the house show. Put a title change on that, and put out there that, hey, if you come to a show, you might be able to see a title shot or title change. But also because Booker's actually hurt and they needed to get off of him at the same time.
Two birds with one stone.
Little A, little B. Not a bad move.
So Christian's feeling himself. He says tonight he has chosen someone, an appropriate opponent to face on the debut on Spike TV. And so that will, of course, be who we know in TNA as Brother Runt. But here he is Spike Dudley. So he's coming out. Spike frustrates Christian with his scrappiness, but Christian quickly takes over. Goes for his heel offense with the ab stretch and his grinding repertoire. Spike fires up a little bit, hits a bulldog, and gets a decent little near fall on him. But Christian quickly turns the tie and gets the unprettier. But it was a pretty whatever match. But I thought Spike made it a little interesting at the end, hitting the bulldog on him to maybe get a little bit of drama that he might have somewhat of a shot and make it a little decent match. But overall, just a quick match to solidify Christian as a new champion, let him heal off on a lesser opponent. So I just went to gentleman's 2 on it, Logan.
Yeah, I went to as well. Spike comes in, House of Fire. He really lights up Christian early. And then Christian cuts him off with an eye poke at some point. I said Christian may have pulled off the impossible and made a Spike match boring, because Spike usually does insane things and is at least always entertaining. He may have a sloppy match here and there, but he usually takes a bump that almost kills him, of course. But he usually is a pretty entertaining bumper, at least in his matches. But Christian slows it down for sure in the middle and kind of wears him down with some red souls and stuff. But Spike comes back. I like the little battering ram move he does with this. He just runs and headbutts him in the gut. I like that spot. He does that sick double stomp where he just kind of hops off the top rope and goes straight down. He doesn't pump or anything. He just fucking steps on him. I thought Spike's Hope segment, kind of like you said, was really good, and you could almost believe that he was going to pull it off, but obviously Christian overcomes him, and he and Spike kind of overcame the Christian boredom throughout the middle portions of the match. So Spike wins the entertainment part for tonight, but doesn't win the title, of course. But 2 stars.
Spike's like, hey, do you want to you could throw me off the top rope into the announce table? Nah, man, how about an ab stretch and I'll choke you with my boot in the corner. And we wouldn't want it to get too exciting here. Come on, Spike.
Exactly.
It was a Christian match, 2003. Don't get too wild. All right. Kane exits the paddy wagon, and Eric immediately approaches him and wants to cut a deal with him. He says that he'll lay down, no problem, and then Kane can just pick up the win. And Kane isn't having any of that shit. He says he's going to do it his way. So I don't know if that was a Frank Sinatra reference, since we said Frank Sinatra Jr. earlier. So not sure. But we will. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say the only thing that came out of that segment that I thought was interesting is one of the cops was Trevor Murdoch in the background.
Oh, I didn't realize
Yeah.
In
He was really the
NWA
one that they
star.
focused on if you go back and see it. But yeah, future NWA world champion. So he was one of the cops. All the other cops, I think, were just actors. So I tried to, once I noticed the one was him, I kind of tried to see if any of the other ones looked familiar. But he was definitely one of them.
There you go, fun tidbit. But we're actually going to go to this match mid-show. I thought this might be more of our main event, but we're going to go to it mid-show here. So it's going to be Eric Bischoff versus Kane. And so this kind of plays off what you said earlier. I'm not sure why everyone is so convinced that Kane's going to beat up Eric necessarily, because it almost seemed like they were in cahoots. I love the so JR, we should say, didn't come to commentary immediately earlier. So he shows up here and finally chases Coach away and gives him just a brutal the sneer he gives Coach is pretty amazing. He gets his spot back, Eric down, bummed that he's seemingly going to get his ass kicked. JR says he deserves this. He looks at Kane with disgust as he comes down. Bischoff tries to lay down. Kane's not having him. He grabs him by the throat and picks him up. JR is losing it. Choke slam him, Kane. Choke slam him. But Kane puts him down, leaves, and gets counted out. So he does not actually do anything to Eric. Eric ends up winning the match. Kane gets the mic and says he's done doing what people say, like the fans. He does what he wants. Eric is cheery about this. But then Kane looks like he's about to turn on him, and then RVD comes down and makes the save. I'm not really sure why he wants to save Eric, but whatever. I guess he just wants to attack Kane. Pretty muted reaction, I thought, to this, probably because they haven't built much to, like, RVD has been like third on the ladder of people Kane's going to face. Like, it's the crowd's not really built to anticipate this. So I didn't think he had a great reaction. But he ends up flying into the barricade in a pretty vicious bump. He recovers, though, tries to get the 5-star, but misses it and ends up landing on a chair. And Kane just blasts him with the chair right in the face. And yeah, so we kind of end on RVD getting his ass handed to him. So it was fine for what it was, but we got a little bit of RVD and Kane. I just don't really understand. Like, I don't know how Eric's involvement really helps here. It just, to me, takes away from the focus of the feud and kind of waters it all down. I really think you should try. And like, I feel like you saw that in the muted reaction by the fans, that they're really not that into RVD and Kane because they haven't been conditioned to, because it's been all about Bischoff and Austin and Shane and Linda and everyone else besides RVD. So I feel like they need maybe in these next couple of weeks, maybe they will pivot and really go hot and heavy on them, which is, I think, what they need to do.
Yeah, if you didn't know that Austin was pretty much retired and had to be retired because of the neck surgery, you could almost envision a Kane versus Austin match at this point before RVD, because Kane, Austin's kind of the reason he lost the mask in the first place. I mean, obviously Triple H was, and Triple H cheating to win the match that Kane lost his mask in was the real reason. But you'd almost could see a Kane versus Austin match before you could see a Kane versus RVD with how they've presented the whole feud and stuff. So I definitely get you there. But yeah, I don't know why anybody thought this was going to be a match. Obviously, Kane and Bischoff worked together last week to kind of take out Shane. So yeah, I'm not real sure what they were thinking. This is an all-time JR call before the match where he's just fucking roasting Eric Bischoff. Is great. And I said they shit on Coach so much. There's no wonder a heel turn for him is coming in the near future. Right. So like, right. I really don't
Poor
blame
guy.
him. He is just absolutely shit upon almost all the time by King when JR wasn't around, and then JR pretty much immediately said shit.
Like, why? I don't even get why JR's mad. Like, what are they going to do? Just sing King out there by himself? Like, he was, he got lit on fire. He was like recovering from an injury. Like, why? I don't even understand why JR is mad. It's not like they built up coaches like Eric's Patsy or something. It's very strange. Like, why is he so mad at Coach?
Yeah. Yeah, as I say, that I don't blame him for kind of being an asshole after this. So, yeah, that definitely is something that stood out to me. But yeah, this match, or the whole fight with RVD after the match, it was a good little brawl for a little bit. But RVD kind of probably needed to end up on top on this, and he gets fucking he does the frog splash and lands right on the chair, and then Kane pretty much fucking crowns him with it. So. Yeah, he looks weak again, and you don't have much belief that he's ever going to be the person to beat Kane for the first time since he's unmasked.
Just warming him up for Shane.
Exactly.
All right, we go to Gail Kim, and I believe this is the first time we've ever heard her speak, if I recall, correct? I don't think we've
Yeah,
had
I'm pretty
Gail.
sure. Yeah.
Mhm. Right. So this is her first promo. She's asked, why did she do what she did? She says she turned because no one will talk to her. She didn't get any backstage interviews before this, but now that she's done this is the first time anybody's bothered to interview her, so she's getting attention. So it does make sense, though. I mean, she's not wrong. So I guess there's logic there, because they're right. They didn't do anything to let us know who the hell she was before. So now they're talking to her. So I guess her reasoning makes a little bit of sense.
Yeah. She calls the company out, I think Terry's the person that interviews her. But calls out the company, calls out, the interviewer that's interviewing her, said, "You didn't want to talk to me when I was champion, so now you want to talk to me because I got your attention and beat the crap out of your favorite Trish Stratus." So yeah, I think it was a pretty good reasoning, and made total sense.
And then we go right into the match. So it's going to be a triple threat match for the women's title. It's going to be Trish versus Gail versus Molly. So tough spot for Molly, is of course a triple threat. She can lose the title without getting pinned. Obviously they didn't give this a lot of time because they never do. But I thought for the short time they were given, they went balls to the wall in this match. Like they were beating the shit out of each other. Gail, I thought, broke her neck at one point when she does that dive to the outside. That was brutal.
Oh, yeah.
She's landed right on her face. Rough. But, it wasn't the most crisp match ever, but I thought it had more energy than what we usually see here on Raw from a lot of these matches that are real tepid. So I like the energy they had going at each other. And I thought the finish was pretty cool. It made Molly look real smart because she gets basically, her and Gail Kim have been sort of working together throughout the whole match. So they hang Trish up in the tree of woe, and then Molly swerves Gail and goes after her and rolls her up. So kind of outsmarts Gail in this. So I thought it made Molly look pretty good. So a clever finish for this one. So I ended up going 2 stars on this. I thought for the time they were given in the situation, I thought it wasn't a bad little match. And even with the Gail botch, I thought it kind of fit the chaotic the chaotic energy they had throughout this whole match.
Yeah, I enjoyed it as well. I went 2 1/4. Trish and Molly don't even wait for Gail to get to the ring. They start beating each other's ass before Gail even gets out there, and then Trish tries to get some revenge and kind of attacks Gail on the ramp. Trish is really on fire at the beginning of this. She really takes it to Gail and Molly early in this one. I said Gail almost scorpions herself because she does I don't know if you watched Ridiculousness with Rob Dyrdek back in the day, but they deemed when your legs touch the back of your head, they call that scorpioning yourself. So she scorpions herself on that dive pretty hard. And then, like you said, Molly and Gail do a pretty good job of double teaming Trish. Take that how you want to. Molly then puts, and then like you said, Molly puts Trish in the tree of woe. I thought that was a really smart way to do that with the finish, and she absolutely crushes her with that clothesline. So yeah, pretty hard hitting, pretty like you said. I think these women have kind of figured out that they're not going to get a ton of time in these matches, and they try to fill as much of the time with as much hard hitting and as much action as possible. So. Yeah, really, really, really solid triple threat, and maybe a good matchup we could see in the future again.
Mm-hmm. All right, we go to Triple H. He tells his bros that Eric was so elated about his win over Kane that he was able to speak to him and get something done. He says he couldn't get the match canceled, but he was able to swing Orton as a special ref tonight in Rick's match against Goldberg. This is it's weird because it's like at the same time they're building the elimination chamber, but like in this segment, it feels very much like we're still focused on Goldberg Triple H. Like I could see this being, part of the build if they were still doing that match. So it's like they're still really focused on Triple H and Goldberg, but then there's these other guys involved, so it's a little odd. But again, like I said earlier, it doesn't feel like they're doing anything to make these feuds like interesting or personal. Like we talked about the RVD Kane thing. It's like it's kind of just putting them together because they were partners, but they're not really cutting any promos about that or bringing that into it. Same thing with this. Like it's Goldberg and Triple H, which should be, I know it's not a singles match, but if they're still sort of focusing on them and their issues, like it's just like Goldberg has to beat up Ric Flair because they're in Evolution. Like they don't go into any, it's very basic stuff. Like, he's got to fight Rick, and then now we have Orton as the guest referee. It's just like a lot of tropey shit. They're not getting into anything of like Goldberg being this phenom in WCW, and can he beat Triple H, who's like, Triple H, kind of what they were doing when they first started this feud, like with Triple H cutting promos, but they've kind of gone away from that. Like they don't get into any interesting, backstory with this. It's just very like, I don't know, very pain by numbers to me. Like, all right, he faces Rick, then there's a guest referee. It's just like a checklist of shit each week rather than what feels like a real feud, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I think they kind of screwed themselves making
Mm-hmm.
it an elimination chamber, because you do have to involve 4 other guys, whether they actually make sense into the storyline or not. But I think that's kind of why it's like that. They don't want to go too hard into the Goldberg Triple H feud, because obviously, once the SummerSlam match happens, whoever ends up being champ, they're probably going to be the ones fighting each other, because whoever wins is probably going to be one of them too. As I think these other 4 guys are kind of forced into this match, just because of injury and such. So maybe they want to save some of the, one-on-one rivalry stuff. But I mean, you gotta make it, you gotta spice it up a little bit, or other than, or it's going to end up, like you said, just kind of being a match for match's sake.
Mm-hmm. Right, just sort of like heel beat down kind of thing, and then a guest ref. It's like every little trick in the book, but nothing real of any substance. Yeah, it's just a mess. I mean, there's no other way to say it. Like them changing like this, it's just hard to execute in any real interesting way.
Exactly.
All right, so we go to the shit. Rosie, he helps an old lady across the street, but he of course has shit written on his cape, which is like a bed sheet. But she's not a fan of the name, and ends up smacking him with her purse or something. And then Hurricane runs up out of nowhere and says, "No good deed goes unpunished." So, that's about it. I don't know really what else to say about it.
Just a weird segment for sure, but obviously trying to get him over as the everyday superhero. But he does unfortunately spell shit and gets smacked with the purse, like you said. So yeah, just a weird segment.
All right, we then head to Austin, who's with Eric here, and he reveals to Eric that part of the contract was the winner of that match has to face Shane, so he will end up having to face Shane down the line, I guess. My thing with I think Bischoff and Austin are both obviously really great performers, but I'm just getting really the feuding bosses thing with the contracts and like almost when Goldilocks, the contracts,
the contract,
all this crap. I was getting kind of old. Like it doesn't, to me, this being the focus, like kind of the main focus of the wrestling show is not really like, it's like the fulcrum of how it's what everything on the show revolves around. It's just not that interesting. And then neither, like Eric's not really a wrestler. Austin can't get physical. So where can any of this stuff really go? So it's just always them like going at each other with, this kind of shit. And it's, it's nothing against them. I just don't think it's the greatest material. There's just only so much you can mine out of this. And they spend so much time every week on this. And it's just kind of, I don't know, I'm getting sort of over it.
Yeah. I was say I hate to tell you this, but I don't think that's gonna go anywhere. I'm sure. Yeah, I definitely agree with you. They definitely need to, they can't separate them because they're still on the same show, but kind of give them their own thing and kind of be out of each other's way for a little bit. But yeah, Austin's Eric says something about outsmarting him 2 weeks in a row, and then obviously Austin says, you think you outsmarted me, but you actually you actually signed a contract that stated the winner of the match gets a match with Shane down the line. So we do get that set up for SummerSlam.
Like every major angle on Raw has to go through them. Like they have to be
Yeah.
heavily involved in everything. Like even
Well,
Stephanie,
it's
when
getting
she
that
was
way on
GM,
SmackDown too. Yeah.
right, with Vince. But like even when Stephanie was GM, she would be involved, but it was kind of like she would set things up and then kind of let the guys like let everyone go at it. With Austin and Bischoff, I find they're very heavily involved. Like they're just as involved as the people who are feuding, and it's getting to be kind of a problem.
Yeah,
but I believe you. I'm sure it's not going to change.
I'm sure I just don't think they have the horses at this point. They don't have anybody that they trust to get a segment like that over by themselves. So they feel the need to involve, Austin, who's the biggest star in company history, possibly, depending on your thought process on that one. But, they just don't. It's just Vince being a maniac and not trusting any of the new guys or the guys that they have at the top, So just a problem all around.
New guys like Rodney Mack, who is now a jobber. And guess what? He's going to job here as he faces the Hurricane. Even he does have Teddy. We hear that Teddy's out on a cruise, apparently, sailing around the world or some shit like that.
A worldwide cruise. Yeah, that's what they say.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe he has a herniated disc like Booker T. I'm not sure, but not much doing here. Rodney Mack tries to get a few things in. He gets a good power slam, I thought, here. But Hurricane fights back after getting kicked by Rodney Mack. His chokeslam gets derailed, but he ends up winning with a crossbody, which I thought he got a nice height on. Again, we always love the Hurricane. He got real high up in the air on his crossbody. But, yeah, Rodney Mack, just a straight-up jobber. When you're losing to the Hurricane, like, I love the Hurricane, but the way he's positioned on the show, he's very much like he is kind of like, if you're losing the Hurricane, you're pretty much at the bottom of the totem pole, because he is kind of like the line in the sand that separates, anybody who's upper card is going to beat the Hurricane. So, but Rodney Mack tries to beat him up after the win, but of course Rosie comes out for the save. So I end up going a star in this. It almost I can't believe I'm saying this. It almost felt like a Hurricane squash, which is insane to think about, but that's kind of what this match was.
Yeah, Hurricane squash in the direction that you wouldn't have expected. But yeah, Hurricane's the classic jobber to the stars. He's there to make the Christians and the Randy Ortons and the Triple H's of the world look better. But yeah, like you said, King says Teddy Long's on some type of worldwide cruise. I thought that was a pretty good line. I thought Mack hit a couple of good moves. He had some pretty physical offense that I liked a lot, but he did one of those like real quick twisting power slams on Hurricane at one point. I thought Hurricane had another solid performance. I kind of said it last time. I think he's a pretty solid TV worker. He's in here with Mack, who hadn't had a ton of reps lately, but I think he gets as decent a match out of him as he possibly could have. So I went a star and a half. I enjoyed it. Pretty good. I seem to like Hurricane a lot in his matches.
Little hurricane bump.
Yeah, I got that little hurricane bump. But yeah, I thought he had another solid performance, and obviously he gets saved by the shit afterwards. So always good to see. And he hit that little twisting power slam that we talked about last week. Rosie did. That looks pretty sweet. So yeah, not the best match, but yeah, and like you said with Mack, he's pretty much pretty much DOA after this, because losing the Hurricane, you're probably not in the best position.
Thugging and bugging stuck.
I thought he was done before this, so the fact that he showed up again was shocking for me, at least.
All right, we get a video package, hype video for the Elimination Chamber, which I think it's a pretty cool video. It does get over like the the dimensions and the violence, and gets over the structure. And at this point, the Elimination Chamber is still really new and kind of novel, because they've only had one up to this point. It's not like nowadays where we've seen it a billion times. So I think it is cool to see the hype package and getting it over as it is still new. So I kind of dug it.
Yeah, can you remember the dimensions that were screamed at you throughout this whole segment?
No idea.
No,
No idea.
I can't even do that. I'm not even that
40
entertained.
billion tons of steel. Or some
Yeah,
shit
I
like
just
that.
know they say it's like 3 miles of steel chain or something like that. It's
Right.
ridiculous, you know.
It's very expensive.
Bischoff is screaming at you the whole time this is going on. So, but yeah, I have always liked this little hype package of the, kind of talking about the dimensions of it and kind of getting over the violence that it can bring.
All right, we then head to the highlight reel, where it's going to be Jericho and Kevin Nash will be his guest here. Jericho explains to us the rules of a hair versus hair match, but then tries to pivot and say that he's like pretty much he has a loophole saying he's going to shave his face, which is ridiculous because he's already clean shaven. So he says if he loses, he will not shave that. He'll shave his face instead of his hair. And then starts bragging about his luscious hair, how it cascades down. Watch as it cascades, which JR says he doesn't know what cascade means, which is, guess he didn't have a master's degree. Sorry, JR. But I feel like JR is a pretty good vocabulary. I'm shocked he wouldn't know what cascade. Maybe it's the burn. He's still recovering from the burn.
It's
burned his brain.
Yeah, it's burned a few brain cells or something like that. So he got too much smoke and he breathed in too much smoke and it affected his cognitive skills, I guess, for a little bit.
Your boy Nash comes out. He frames it to Jericho as don't think of it as getting your head shaved. Think of it as a makeover. And he wants to show some images. Jericho immediately says, "You think you can just come in and show some images on the obesely expensive Geritron without my permission? But I will allow it." So he has some very
I love that.
He has some very 2003 Photoshop pictures of Jericho, where the first one is not him totally bald, it's just him balding. He looks very much like WCW Steve Austin in the first one, where he's like has the kind of like the skullet do going on. Mm-hmm. We then see one where he's completely bald. Then we have one where he's a pink mohawk. The Kid in Play, where he has the Kid in Play haircut. The Terminator, where he has like a buzz cut. So this was like the first time we've seen Nash like get to be the more goofy and lighthearted Nash, which I thought was refreshing to see, like him kind of making the corny jokes about Jericho's hairstyles. Jericho says that Nash isn't ready for the chamber sport. You Nash hole. A lot of Jerichoisms in this one. Nash then pulls out the Halliburton that he has some clippers in and shows it to Jericho. And then he gets serious and says if Jericho doesn't accept, he'll beat his ass now and shave his head. But Jericho says, no, why don't they do it next week? But Jericho gets a cheap shot. But then Nash comes back at him, drops him with a sidewalk slam. Jericho bails to the outside as Nash comes at him with the shears. But Jericho is able to find a fire extinguisher under the ring and blinds Nash with that one and kind of scurries away before anything else could be done to him. So we kind of officially said, it was a weird thing because I feel like they had already set this up, but I guess this makes it official or something, the hair versus hair match. But I thought this was fine enough. Like, at least, I've been complaining that there's not enough to these feuds. They're not personal or anything. At least this one does have some kind of a personal issue. I like Nash being able to actually show his, what I think is more his normal personality with the goofiness and the dad jokes and shit. And then Jericho is always entertaining with all his goofy sayings, like the obesely expensive Geritron and calling him a Nash hole and sport and all this stuff. So I think all in all, it was a fairly entertaining segment and it did build to the match. So this could have been a lot worse.
Yeah, I honestly thought the hair versus hair was supposed to be this week. I think that I thought that was kind of how Jericho framed it the previous week. So I was shocked that it was scheduled for the week after. They kept saying he had a highlight reel, and I was like, I thought they were supposed to have the hair match this week, but obviously it's something that they're going to do next week. But yeah, I think this segment went as well as could be. Like you said, Nash kind of got to show his natural personality. I think that's a good point that you made. He hadn't really been able to do that. He's been real serious and real, just overly serious and like yelling at people and not in his normal environment. So the fact that you get to see him kind of bust out some comedy chops here definitely puts him in a better light. and obviously Jericho with his all his Jerichoisms, kind of like you said, that he busts out every. I don't think we got a sanctimonious son of a bitch this week, but we did get the obesely expensive Geritron 5000. So, but yeah, solid segment. Might have gone a tad long, but I think they filled the time pretty well.
Mm-hmm. All right, and with that, we'll hit to our main event, which is going to be the rematch between Ric Flair and Goldberg, with Randy Orton as a guest referee. Randy going the Shawn Michaels route here, as he's wearing his short trunks with the referee shirt, and he was hitting the baby oil because his legs were glistening in these in this ref outfit. He was oiled up. So we get some immediate bullshit as they have the brass knuckles here. He lays Goldberg out with those, but Goldberg's able to kick out even with Orton's fast count. But then as Goldberg comes back, he hits a press slam and gets the slow count from Orton on that. Goldberg's starting to grow impatient with Orton's bullshit as this goes on. Flair ends up sneaking a chair and hits Goldberg with that. Goldberg kind of no-sells the chair, but then Flair hits him with a low blow. Flair works the leg. He puts him in the figure four, and he gets a rope break, which I don't even know why they would. I don't know why he breaks it. Like, he doesn't have to. His buddy's the ref or whatever. But whatever. Goldberg says screw it and just goes at Orton. Flair ends up getting speared in his cell. Is absolutely ridiculous. Like, he just kind of he doesn't. There's no backward momentum. He just kind of drops very wooden. Just goes straight down. And so here's HBK now as things are breaking down. He comes to lay out Orton. Flair ends up getting the jackhammer, and then Shawn uses Orton's hand to count the three. And then Goldberg stands tall and wins the match. So I thought this was okay. Goldberg beating the odds. I would kind of enjoyed it more if you could have just figured out a way to do it on his own without Shawn having to come help him.
Yeah.
But I think for what it was fine. I thought it gave him a decent amount of shine and continues his shit with Evolution. So I went 2.5 on it. I thought it was okay. It was perfectly fine, babyface having to deal with a bunch of bullshit from the heels and standing on top. I thought that was a perfectly fine example of that, if not anything amazing.
Yeah, 2.5 is what I went as well. Definitely not how I would book Goldberg, but it is a better use of him for sure. I like you said, I would have liked to have seen him overcome the 2-on-1 by himself, but obviously Shawn is going to be in the match with them at SummerSlam, so it makes sense to kind of involve him at the same time. Get to point out a rare timekeeper botch here. They ring the bell twice for some reason. They ring it, and then Randy rings it again later. It's strange. I don't know what the fuck happened. But obviously Goldberg's pretty distracted by Orton in the beginning, and Flair kind of jumps him and works him over for a good bit. Flair, he's famous for his chops, and Goldberg absolutely no sells him and just starts beating Flair's ass after he hits him with a few chops. Orton, of course, slow counts throughout, and then Goldberg eventually goes after him. Like you said, that he locks in the figure four, and for some reason they get a rope break for some reason. I don't know why he let it go. Once he kind of finally fights Flair off, and he starts kind of trying to go after Orton, like you said, and kind of tries to take both of them out. Ends up getting a spear on both of them. Like you said, Shawn Michaels hits Orton with the Sweet Chin music, and then Goldberg finishes Flair off with the jackhammer, and like you said, Michaels counts the pin, which was a funny little spot because Orton is just dead on the mat. But like you said, maybe not the best way to present Goldberg, but it was a solid match nonetheless.
Yeah, they did give him the main event spot, so
that's true.
Yeah. So okay, that wraps up Raw. I ended up going 4 out of 10 on it. I thought it was a little bit better than what we've seen last week, but that doesn't tell you a whole lot. I just think they seemed a little more focused with the stories, but I still don't think anything's happening that's too interesting, or there's no real hot angle going on. And then as far as the matches, I mean, still feel like we rarely get anything like on this show. We got nothing above like decent. Like we topped out like 2.5, which is like okay, and everything was that or below. So it's just hard when you don't have really any like red hot angles or no good matches to really have anything that's even average. So I had to go below.
Yeah, I went 4 as well. Yeah, definitely better than what we've had the last couple of weeks, I'd say, but that's not saying much. Like kind of like you said, also. But yeah, it was when 2.5 is the best you can get in ring. It's probably not a good sign of how the show's going. And you know, like you said, everything's flooded with Bischoff and Austin at this point. They're involved in almost every story, it seems. So. They definitely need to start focusing on the superstars themselves and maybe kind of try their best to separate Bischoff and Austin as much as possible. But like I said, I'm not sure how well that's going to work out for us. But yeah, they definitely need to restructure Raw a little bit and figure out a way to make it a little better. And you know, just put some better in-ring matches on with people that people actually care about.
Agree. All right, we'll see how SmackDown fares here. This will be August 14th, 03 SmackDown from St. Louis. So a rare sight where SmackDown gets kind of like a bigger city than Raw does here. So the big story that we open with is recapping, Brock's turn last week and aligning with Vince. And with that, Vince opens the show to kind of brag about this. He says that he wants us to meet the real Brock. He replays all of what happened last week and kind of gives a smug commentary over it. Pretty much just a glorified replay. I didn't even really have anything too interesting that Vince said. No real Vince-isms. He says Kurt is not here, but he will have to face the music next week. But here's Brock out. He grabs the mic and in a very smug tone, he says that friends are just a way to get what you want, and that's what he did with Kurt Angle. The people suck just like Kurt. And then Vince grabs the mic and says Brock will face Kurt at SummerSlam. And then Stephanie comes down. She power walks down to the ring, very pissed. Says he's a good businessman, but as a father, he's nothing. Screeching at him right here. Vince says he doesn't take this from anyone, he doesn't take it from anyone, especially not a woman or his daughter. And she's a disappointment to the family. And tonight she's going to face the A-Train, who, of course, injured her at the pay-per-view. Which they say he bruised her sternum or something, some kind of sternum injury. So, all right. So my issues with this would be Brock comes off as secondary. I didn't love this. It's long. I don't really see the need to replay every single fucking thing that happened from last week. My thing with this is, it's like they're trying to reset Brock, and it's like, I want you to meet the real Brock. It's like, we've seen this Brock already like 6 months ago. It's not really anything new. He used to be a monster. He just had this brief detour where he wasn't. So I don't really like him being secondary and all this, like kind of Vince's, and they don't make it seem like he's Vince's lackey, but I don't know, just something about him aligning with Vince I don't think is needed. It's just like, I feel like they don't know how to present Brock as a heel. Like last time he was dominant, he started turning face, and I don't think they liked it because he's supposed to be a monster, so they tried to change his character. So now, like here, he's cutting this promo, and I feel like they're trying to make him talk like a smug dickhead, like he's Jericho or Triple H or something, and then that doesn't really fit the style of heel I think he is. He's a monster, so it doesn't fit his personality. He doesn't seem totally comfortable in that role. So I feel like that doesn't fit too well. So they're sort of trying to make Vince's mouthpiece, but then still have him cut a promo. I just feel like they still don't completely know what to do with his character outside, like when he's not in the ring. I think they know what to do there, but they don't know, like, should he have the mic? Should he not have the mic? Is he a smug asshole? Is he just like a Vader-style monster? Like, they just do not know how to present him.
Yeah, they're trying to make him a chicken shit heel, which, like you said, the last time they made him a monster, they kind of turned him face because people love seeing him, get in there and dominate guys. So, yeah, I kind of think you're right. I kind of don't think they know how to present him without making him the cool heel or whatever. Mm-hmm. There were just a couple of Vinceisms that he brings out. He calls him a sadistic animal. And he says what happened last week was Brock's idea of dwarf tossing. So he compares Kurt Angle to a dwarf. So they're just a couple of Vinceisms in there. But obviously he says Kurt is convalescing and recouping at home. So anytime somebody can use convalescing, I'm a fan of that because it sounds so fucking derogatory. But Brock says he kind of plays the academic tonight and defines what friendship is. What it is, what the definition is, and then what it means to him, or something like that. Says once Kurt, took the title from him, they weren't friends anymore. And obviously they set up the match for SummerSlam. I thought once Steph came out, it kind of got uncomfortable. It was kind of, not very 2024, I'll say. And he kind of just yells at her and demeans her, and she kind of cowers into the corner. So not the best look, but it was a different time back then.
Puts her in a match with a very oily, hairy man.
Yeah, exactly. The 350-pound A-Train. I know exactly how much he weighs because they say it 500 times in this episode.
All right, so that's what we have to look forward to. Later we'll have Steph against the A-Train. That's our McMahon, big McMahon match of the night, because we have to have this on every show now. But maybe a more exciting match, at least from a technical perspective, is going to be this next one. We'll get a rematch from Vengeance. It's going to be Ray and Kidman versus World's Greatest Tag Team. So we've seen these guys already. They're awesome. The match of the pay-per-view is awesome, and this match is awesome. Ray's speed is just insane in this. Like the first big tag, like the chain of moves when he first gets in is just insane. Like just the stuff he's pulling off, it's so fluid. I thought the near fall before the break on the Super Rana was really good. Things start to break down. Like I said, these guys are just all so fluid in their moves. They kind of go into the second portion where World's Greatest Tag Team take over, and they kind of work on Ray's knee after he tweaks it going to the outside. Great offense by the champs. Like I like the way they like vary it up between the power stuff and using their their amateur holds on them. I think keeps things real interesting. And they also did a good job. Like Ray hits a hope spot here and there, so it's not just so he keeps you in it, and he gets a lot of sympathy because he's so over with the crowd. Like he really gets you to buy in, and his size too, I think, helps with that. So just like a really well done heat segment on Ray for this. And then the hot tag is sweet. I thought Kidman was really awesome when he came in for the hot tag. The drop kicks were ripping. Like I thought he really executed the drop kicks perfectly. They get the shooting star in 619 in stereo, but there's so much chaos going on with all the guys in the ring that the ref is kind of delayed with his count. So World's Greatest Tag Team survived that. They go for the belt shot. Ray is able to get the belt from him, but as he's distracted doing that, Kidman ends up eating a super kick and goes down to the pin. But yeah, I thought this match was awesome. Like I went 4 on it. It was great. I just thought it was like a tag formula match executed extremely well between the opening with Ray hitting his chain of moves, and then I thought the heat segment on him was really good. And I like the finish. They kind of swerved you a little bit, thinking they're going to cheat with the belt. And then Ray's smart enough to know that he's got to stop them, but they're savvy enough to still hit the super kick. So just really awesome stuff, a killer opener to this show. And these guys are just – the Ray Kidman tag team is one that I had kind of forgotten about, this little run between them. I had remembered Tajiri, but I had forgot this whole Kidman run. And this is awesome, just as awesome as the Tajiri stuff.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I went 4 as well. Obviously, we went 5 on the pay-per-view match, so obviously maybe not as good as that one, but this is probably as good a TV match as you're probably going to get. Taz wonders at the beginning of the match how much sleep Kidman got on his honeymoon. So apparently, Tori and Billy had just gotten married recently. Taz also says he barely slept on all 2 days of his honeymoon, so they get that. He gets that snipe in there before the match. The match starts. I thought Shelton and Haas did a pretty good job of working over Kidman to begin the match. Ray comes in like a bullet, just nonstop until kind of Haas cuts him off. Ray kind of gets like the nearest of near falls. It was 2 7/8. Gets the nearest fall you possibly can get before they kind of go to commercial at one point. I feel like every time Ray seems close to kind of finishing off Benjamin, Haas is there to cut him off. So Ray's kind of dominating Benjamin and seems to have him on the ropes a couple of times, but Haas is always there. I've really liked Haas's work in these last few weeks, especially since the pay-per-view and stuff. I feel like he's emerged as kind of he's not the leader of the team per se, but he seems to be like have more of a veteran presence than maybe Benjamin does. Haas hurts Ray's knee at some point. I think he gets dumped to the outside, kind of lands on it, and Haas works it over. And then Benjamin, for some reason, stupidly gets in and starts targeting his back instead of obviously working the hurt knee that's already there. So I don't really know what was going on there. Haas comes in and hits a pretty sick drop kick as Ray's kind of diving at him. Taz has another funny situation where he starts explaining how high risk situations work. And him and Cole just go back and forth with each other, and it's hilarious. I can't do it justice, but it's pretty funny how they kind of go back and forth about it. Ray hits a pretty creative move to kind of get out, and he hits a snapmare and a drop kick. I thought were pretty sick. Kidman comes in and really takes it to the champs when he finally gets the tag. There's a pretty good sequence of a belly to belly into a pin, and then Ray hits the leg drop to kind of break it up. I have to call out some bad reffing by Kyoto in this one, as he seems to be paying more attention to Ray doing the 619 than Kidman covering Haas after he hits the shooting star press. And then Haas shockingly kicks out of the shooting star press because Kyoto wasn't there to count it at the beginning. And then just absolute chaos ensues after that, like you said, with the belts and all that good stuff. And then they end up, World's Greatest Tag Team ends up escaping once again with the win. But yeah, just nonstop action. These four guys have a ton of chemistry. That Ray Kidman tag team definitely deserves a lot more recognition and deserve to be talked about as one of the better combinations of guys that didn't tag for very long. So really good stuff.
Yeah, awesome match. These guys always deliver. So a really cool way to start the show. And with that, we'll go to a much shorter match, as it's going to be Doug Basham and the continued trend of the Bashams not being in tag team matches, besides being very much a tag team, like a tag team-ass tag team with their matching gear. They almost look like twins, but he's going to be facing Billy Gunn. And this match was like 90 seconds long. Like, they go at each other. Shaniqua gets involved. The ref gets distracted, and then they double team him with this leg sweep clothesline combo, and Doug Basham gets the win. So I mean, it was super quick. And then Shaniqua comes in and slams Tori. They hit the double spine buster on Billy, and then luckily the orgy friends Nitty and Jamie Noble come in to make the save and save them. So I went a half a star on it. Like, it was really barely even a match. It was kind of just a way to set up the post-match thing here. So I don't really know if this is leading to anything, but yeah, it was the thing that happened.
Yeah. The tag team of the orgy mates, Billy Gunn and Jamie Noble, was definitely not a direction I saw this going. Billy kind of keeps the trend going of somebody coming in and just firing on all cylinders, just taking it to their opponent right off the bat. I feel like a lot of people have done that in what we've talked about tonight. Billy does that little hip toss suplex thing that I feel like we've called out a few times. I really like that move. It's about the only move he hits towards the end as the match is kind of winding up. But and then, like you said, Shaniqua kind of dominates Tori, which obviously distracts Billy, and the Bashams kind of use some twin magic to win. And then, like you said, the after effect, they do a pretty sick middle rope spine buster. I think Danny hits that, and then Shaniqua hits a pretty nice power bomb. But yeah, half star, not too much. I don't know if this leads to a match, but maybe we'll see it on SmackDown. But I know this doesn't happen at SummerSlam. I'll put it that way.
Real quick, we go backstage and we get Bradshaw and Farouk, I guess they call him Ron Simmons now. They have like a picture of they were saying that Shaniqua looks like Shelton Benjamin in drag, just making like cringy jokes about that. And then they say they should reopen the APA because people need protection. So real quick, the jokes were kind of stupid and the picture was dumb. And then we see Big Show leaving Vince's office, and he looks like he's in good spirits. So I guess maybe he cut a deal with Vince or something. So not a whole lot to speak of there. I don't know if you had anything on these two monumentous segments, Logan.
No, JBL at his worst. I think this is, when people shit on him, this is kind of the shit they're talking about him, this and him being a bully. And then, Big Show comes out of his office looking pretty pumped. So Vince must have told him something he really liked. So, but yeah, nothing too much of these segments.
Right. And with that, we'll get Big Show against The Undertaker. So they're going to, we start things off. I thought Taker was displaying his quickness here, especially compared to Big Show. He definitely seems like the more spry of the two. He looked good here. Goes after the arm, twists into an arm bar, hits a big DDT. So it's all Taker to start. Show starts to fight back and hits a sidewalk slam, and that re-aggravates Taker's recent rib injury. And so Show goes right at that, continues to work that with his giant offense, which is pretty much stepping on it, but which works in this context. I thought Taker's selling was pretty good on this, like screaming, doing the Taker scream, we get Taker taking the strap down, which you don't see all the time. And it's time for the soup bones Logan. He goes in and starts laying the strikes. But Show pulls the ref to avoid a choke slam by Taker, and then the ref gets crushed in the corner, so he's out of it for a minute. We brawl to the outside, and Show ends up going over the barricade. They brawl into the crowd a little bit, but then here A-Train scurries in from the crowd and levels Undertaker with a 2x4, and so the ref recovers, and we start getting a double count, and Taker is too injured with the ribs to make it back in, and Big Show does, so Taker ends up getting counted out. So, I didn't think this was that bad of a match. I kind of dug it. I think Taker's feeling himself right now. I thought he kind of carried this. Big Show was totally tolerable. Like, he played his role well, like working over the ribs. I thought Taker sold well. They had a good little, focus here with the rib stuff going on. I thought Taker's offense was varied. He pulled out the strikes and some interesting stuff here, but, and we got a little bit of build to the pay-per-view match, which is going to be A-Train versus Taker, which is, not a match I can say I'm like super thrilled about, but at least they gave it a little bit of attention here. But yeah, 3 stars on this. I was surprisingly into this match.
Yeah, I actually was. I feel the exact same way. I was surprised at how solid this was considering the two guys. So yeah, I went 3 stars as well. Like you said, they announced that Taker and A-Train is the match for SummerSlam based on their issues that they've had the last few weeks. Kind of like you said, Taker's not often the smaller guy, so he's kind of wrestling a more technical match, kind of targeting a limb to start off with. Don't know if I would have gone for the arm. I probably would have gone for the leg, considering the Big Show's a big motherfucker, and if he could take his leg out, he's pretty ineffective. But I guess he's trying to go for the choke slam arm, so I guess it makes sense at the same time. Like you said, Big Show eventually tees off on Taker's chronically injured ribs. They seem to never recover, no matter how much no matter how much he tapes them up and stuff like that. So it took a little bit longer.
He's got DDP-itis going on.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, exactly. Taker busts out the best pure strikes in the business a lot later than he usually does. He usually kind of starts with that, but he starts busting them out eventually, kind of like you said. Show makes sure the ref gets taken out. At one point, he kind of pulls him in Taker's way, but Taker kind of still dominates through the time that the ref's down. Like you said, they battle to the crowd. Obviously, A-Train smacks him with the 2x4, injures the ribs some more, and then obviously Taker loses by count out. But for a match with pretty much a non-finish, definitely entertaining and probably one of the best Big Show matches we've seen.
Yeah, and they're playing the injuries into this. Like there's got Stephanie with her sternum, Taker's got the ribs. They're kind of carrying this, which is cool. Like it kind of goes into the matches. So that's a good little continuity they have going with this stuff. Like, and then we see Taker after the match. He's got to get he's yelling again as they treat his ribs here. His ribs are all fucked up.
Oh,
Yeah. Oh God.
Yeah.
But yeah, not bad. Pleasantly surprised by that match. All right, we continue on another match. So we're back to back with these. Not quite the segments we had on Raw. We're going mostly in ring on SmackDown. So we're going to get Rhino versus Tajiri. As it announced, we'll have a fatal 4-way for the U.S. Title. It's going to be Tajiri, Rhino, Benoit, and Eddie. We get Eddie and Benoit both on commentary here. You mentioned this to me, Logan, as we were prepping for this, that you were very off-put by Benoit wearing real human clothes. I thought he dressed like Stone Cold. Like he had the tight jeans and the black shirt. It's like he's doing a Stone Cold cosplay.
Yeah, the more I thought about it, he wore a lot of like button ups and slacks and stuff like that when he was in the Horsemen. But in his WWE run, he doesn't really often dress in not tights and a t-shirt. So it really kind of skeeved me out to see him in like real human clothes, like you said. So, but yeah, I mean, he just had the basic. He had one of his shirts on, obviously, but he was in jeans, and I was like, this just doesn't seem right. He needs to have like the blue tights with the Wolverine scratches on the side or whatever.
Yeah, it's a guy you don't imagine wearing normal clothes much.
Yeah, I imagine him wearing wrestling boots and tights at his house. I don't I don't imagine him in gym shorts or anything like that. So,
right. But this match was just as much about the commentary as the actual match. It was a real quick match. But we have Eddie's going on about like it's kind of them going back and forth. They kind of play it more for like comedy. Like they've had a pretty serious feud that's been going on over the past little while, but this has kind of played up more for comedy. Like Eddie's saying that he didn't tap, he was doing la cucaracha. That's what was going on. And then like going back and forth about how he says Benoit always wants to stop at Bob Evans and he doesn't want to eat at Bob Evans and he's more of a Waffle House guy and all this crap on commentary. And meanwhile, in the match, I was surprised at how easily Tajiri won. Like he kind of handles Rhino in this match. Like he puts him in the tarantula. Like Rhino gets a little bit of a shine, but then he goes for the gore and Tajiri throws him into the post and just decks him with the buzzsaw kick and gets a pin and wins pretty easily. Like I was kind of surprised by that. It kind of makes Rhino seem like the low man in the totem pole in this fatal 4-way. But I just went 1 star in the match. Like I said, it was real quick and it was more about what was going on in commentary.
Yeah, it was definitely more about the commentary. I went 1.5. I thought it was pretty hard hitting. Obviously with it not being the focus, really, you're definitely listening for the commentary because it was pretty classic, them going back and forth with each other. But I thought they were pretty physical with each other. They weren't pulling any punches, weren't holding back at all. I think this is another situation where they were kind of told in the back they weren't going to get given much time. So I think they did the best with what they had. But yeah, like you said, Tajiri does kind of handle Rhino a little easier than you would think. But I do think that for what little time that they did have, they did beat the shit out of each other pretty good. Rhino loses because he exposes the steel, obviously, and misses, or it hits it when misses the gore. And then, like you said, Tajiri hits with the buzzsaw kick for the win. And then hilarity continues after the match.
Yeah, as Benoit tries to hop in Eddie's truck and Eddie's not having, he's pissed off. Benoit refuses to leave, so Eddie just kind of storms off. So, yeah, again, it was a interesting turn because they have been very serious between these two, but I think they're leaning more in Eddie's direction here, and it was like Benoit kind of playing Eddie's game with the comedy stuff, and it was fine. It wasn't like, it was goofy, but it was kind of fun. It didn't hurt anything for me.
Yeah, I think, that they play it well. Like, Benoit's trying to get in Eddie's head, kind of trying to play the goofy game and trying to kind of get Eddie off of his. So I think it worked for sure.
Right. All right. We are now going to go to our Zach Gallen match of the week. So he's still getting TV time, old Zach. But this week he's going to be facing Cena. Cena, of course, is going to rap on him. Though I did not think these were the hottest bars we've ever heard old John spit. I thought they were pretty basic. Like it was some pretty basic like digs at him. Of course, having one
pretty
leg.
hateful stuff for sure.
Right. I didn't think he had any. There was not too many classic ones. He said something
Mhm.
like he'd be a perfect partner for like a three-legged race.
Yeah.
So I mean that was all right, but none too memorable here. I wasn't super impressed with this one, but I thought this one was like usually in these matches, like Zach Gallen gets a little bit more shine. I feel like this is like maybe the least offense he's ever got. Like Cena's just vicious on him. He just grabs him by his leg and starts tossing him around.
Mhm.
We do get a spot where like Cena, he teases the FU, but then he gets cocky. He wants to do it off the top rope. Zach Gallen reverses that and kind of hits almost like an arm bar slam type of thing off the top rope. He tries to come back at him, but Cena grabs him and hits the FU pretty easily. So essentially a squash here. I thought what this mainly accomplished was like a good heel showing for Cena, like made him look vicious against a guy who's making fun of the one leg and then going in there and beating his ass. It makes me wonder like how much they have left in the tank for Zach Gowen. Like we'll see here, like after the match, Matt Hardy comes out and well, we'll see that in a second. But yeah, it makes you wonder how much more they have of the Zach Gowen things because he kind of seems to be getting less and less shine each week. So I ended up calling a star on it.
Yeah, I went a star as well. I feel like in the past I've kind of said something like they're kind of testing the babyface thing with Cena to kind of with the raps and stuff to see how much of a reaction he can get. I said so much for that with the rap that he does here because like I said, it was kind of a little bit more hateful than it usually is. Like you said, he was very aggressive in this one. He kind of just beats Zach's ass the whole time. Um, Cena does a back body drop at one point, and Gowen's like he gets so much air in the cell he does when he hits the mat was really good. Like you said, he hits that kind of tornado arm bar thing from the top rope when Cena goes for the FU. I thought that was a pretty cool move. And then like Zach gets the classic surge at the end of the match, like he usually seems to, but obviously Cena cuts him off and hits the FU and wins. But yeah, not terrible, but pretty much just a Cena squash to kind of get him over and get him over as an aggressive heel.
Mm-hmm. And so we go backstage and see Steph nervously preparing for a match when A-Train creepily lurches over her and says a bunch of creepy shit about wanting to rough her up or something. She looks very distraught. The graphic they showed when they showed the graphic for this match, the face Stephanie has in the graphic is ridiculous. She just looks like a deer in the headlights. Like
I think it's literally a picture from earlier when like Vince had her in the corner, like talking down to her or whatever. It was really funny.
Yeah, it was awkward. But then we see, like I kind of said a minute ago, we find out that during the break, as Zach Gowen was being helped to the back after being beaten, that Matt Hardy comes in and lays him out with a cheap shot. So it seems like they're going to continue that. But again, it just seems like their interest in the Zach Gowen thing seems to be dwindling a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're building to some kind of match with Hardy eventually, but yeah, he seems to be pretty low on the totem pole, and constantly getting his ass kicked. And yeah, Train and Steph stuff again, probably not very 2024, pretty uncomfortable. He says Vince paid him a lot of money, but he would have done what he did for free, which is terrible. And then he says something about her liking it rough, and nobody brings it rougher than he does. So not the best, but we'll see how the match goes.
Mm-hmm. Especially from a guy who used to go by the name Prince Albert.
Exactly.
All right. We get a real random segment as we have Orlando Jordan, Funaki, and Spanky sitting, I guess, at like a catering. And they don't really say it, but I guess it's implied that like Orlando Jordan like dared or bet Spanky that he wouldn't chug this chocolate syrup. So of course he does it. And as he's doing it, Vince just happens to be walking by in like a beige sport coat. He's accidentally sprays Vince with the chocolate syrup. Vince is pissed. Kendrick is too stupid to know that he should probably back off and even makes an XFL joke. So that really pisses Vince off. Vince says he doesn't even know Kendrick's name and calls him a stain in the underwear of life or something like that.
Yeah.
And then for his bullshit, he gets a match with Brock next. So
Yeah, I just said the job squad was chit-chatting in the backstage.
Right.
And, Kendrick is chugging chocolate sauce for some reason. I don't really know what was going on there. And yeah, the fact that he calls out the XFL and all of Vince's bad business decisions was pretty funny, considering how low on the totem pole Spanky / Brian Kendrick is. So definitely an interesting segment, but he's about to get his shit pushed in. So I'll let you talk about that match.
That he is. As we go straight to the match, it's going to be Brock versus Spanky. Spanky sprints down full of spunk, but it doesn't last long as he immediately gets his shit pushed in. Like you said, he gets the double power bomb, kind of like the rolling power bomb, whatever you want to call it. Brock doesn't even care about winning the match. He just immediately gets a chair and just brains him with it. Just a vicious chair shot, like
crushes
complete, yeah, like unprotected. Awful, but he chases the ref off and just destroys Kendrick, busts his head open, throws him into the post like a rag doll. I really liked this was like them showing like Monster Brock is back, like heel Brock is back, and I really enjoy it. Like I said, the in ring, like this was awesome. Like it was just him showing like, look, I'm not like tweener or kind of babyface anymore. I'm just back to being like a monster, and this is a good way to show it. I thought the blade job was real good on Kendrick. He ragdolled around really good. Real funny line from Cole here as he's like trying to be serious, and he's like, Taz, this is not about chocolate syrup. This is about Vince trying to show like that he will not be crossed. Just funny, like him saying in a serious tone, this is not about chocolate syrup, was just a ridiculous Michael Cole line. But Vince comes out to raise Brock's hand, and and I thought Taz was good here too, because like we mentioned, I think on one of the last episodes, like Taz is real good at like he leans towards the heels, but he has limits, and this was like an example of like this was past his threshold. He's like, I'm all about physicality or whatever, but this was just kind of crossing the line, like he's trying to hurt this guy. So I thought that was good. Like, if Taz is upset with it, that it was probably brutal, so that kind of put the brutality over good. But overall, I thought it was real effective, like just reestablishing Brock as like a monster. I didn't really rate it as a match because it kind of just went to a DQ as more just a beatdown. But I thought for what it was very effective.
Yeah, this was more of a fight and a brawl, but yeah, very effective. Spanky gets a few punches in, but Brock pretty much wrecks him the rest of the match. Like you said, he hits that triple. I call it a triple clutch powerbomb because he kind of hits one and double clutches him after that. So I thought that spot was always sick. Anytime he hits it, like you said, just freaking crushes him with the chair. And then, he throws him outside, and, usually somebody's going to grab the ropes as they kind of go out, but Spanky just kind of takes a flat back bump. He doesn't even really catch himself going out. He just flies out. That was the 6 spot as well. And then the body press to the steel post is just the thud it makes is just nasty. Spanky does a pretty good job getting his ass kicked here, but yeah, very effective in getting Brock and this new heel persona over. He just destroys poor Spanky here, but it gets Spanky on TV. He's another good worker that probably deserves a little bit more TV time, but sad that he has to get wrecked to get on TV. But yeah, definitely a good way to get Brock over for sure.
Yeah, he's a fucking trooper, man. When they send him out for this stuff, he goes for it. Like he to the detriment of his physical well-being. He goes for it in all these beatdowns. So
maybe this is why he has such radical ideas
right.
these days.
Yeah, that's right. I think I've mentioned it before. Like, it doesn't surprise me that he,
it's kind of a cuckoo bird.
Yeah, has some beliefs after seeing that chair shot. I probably wouldn't think we landed on the moon either.
Yeah.
All right, so Vince sticks around to introduce the main event. Of course, he's all feeling himself after that. He brings out special ring announcer Sable to insult Stephanie even more. She comes out and says it's no count out, and I don't know if she said it's no DQ. I think she meant to, as we'll see as the match goes on. But Steph comes out pissed and just runs at Sable. So, like you said, Logan, another example of someone like wasting no time. Before A-Train even comes out, she goes after Sable and like jumps all over. Train trots down and takes over. Steph takes a big bump as he tosses her by the hair, and she gets some pretty good elevation. He then hits her in the squashes in the corner, and then goes to set up the derailer. But here's Taker hobbling down with his injury to try and save her. So he does stop the derailer, but it's not enough as he gets attacked with the chair, and Big Show comes out and they kind of double team him and go after the ribs and neutralize him. And so A-Train heads back in, hits the Vader bomb on Steph, and then, gets the pin for what it's worth. Vince celebrates and kisses Sable to close the show. So the heels kind of stand tall to close us out on this episode. So, I mean, I think as we kind of wrap up the episode, I thought it was, it was pretty basic and straightforward, but I thought it was a good way of establishing like evil Vince and Brock throughout this show with this main event, like coming in, Vince standing tall, looking like the evil dickhead. Again, I don't even think I mind Brock being with like a heel manager, and this is something I think they'd figure out, in his second run with Heyman. Like, I think it is good for him to have somebody. I just think Vince sucks up so much energy. Like, it's hard when it's
too overpowering of a character to kind of be his. Yeah.
Right. Like, it's always going to be about Vince and his drama with Stephanie and Sable and all this. And like, to me, it takes a little bit away from Brock. I don't mind the whole like aligning him with someone. I just think Vince, it's a good way you put it. His character just sucks so much of the attention. I think and it just feels a bit stale, like the Vince heel character being positioned like this. I think we've seen it so much by 03. It kind of needs a break. And like him going after Stephanie, it's just something we've seen so much. So I think the gist of it, I don't mind. I just don't love the Vince stuff. But I still thought at least give some focus to the show, that it's like Vince and his like little ragtag evil stable that's been slapped together. I thought it's fine. And then we can kind of look forward to Kurt coming back next week and maybe, doing like, swinging it the other way back for the faces maybe. So I thought that was fine.
Yeah. And you already have the overpowering, GMs and, authority figures on the other show that, like, having Vince as well is just probably a little too much in that same direction. But yeah, his character and his presence is so overpowering, and like, he's always going to say something ridiculous in his promos that, like, the promo segments are never going to be about Brock. It's going to be about how ridiculous Vince and how evil and ridiculous Vince can be. So that's never really going to get Brock over, and how he can cut promos and stuff like that. So I definitely get where you're coming from. I didn't rate the match really because it wasn't really a match very much. Mm-hmm. Like you said, Steph comes right out of the gate, goes after Sable, starts beating her ass. Sable makes the very big point of saying this match is no count out. So, and that really comes into play because at one point A-Train's out of the ring for probably a solid 4 or 5 minutes. So he definitely would have been counted out. Like you said, she gets a couple of slaps in, but he chucks her around by her hair. Does a couple of splashes in the corner. I think he actually starts to do the derailer, but that's when Taker comes out. Taker connects with more pure strikes. And I think he actually gets a chair shot in before Big Show comes out, and Big Show kind of wrecks him, and they double team him a good bit, picking apart the chronically injured ribs. And then that Vader bomb that he hits on Steph is pretty sick. So I was shocked to see him get the win, considering Taker came out. But once Big Show came out, I was like, oh, well, this is either just going to not have a finish, or A-Train's going to pull it out somehow. But once Taker got involved, I figured Steph would either, I figured it would just either not have a finish, or, Steph would somehow win with Taker's help. But shocked to see Train actually finish it off. And that, yeah, like I said, that Vader bomb was pretty nasty.
Mm-hmm. So overall, I went 5 out of 10 on this one. We had a great match. I like the return of the heel Brock stuff. I do think they're getting a little bit of a focus here. I didn't think you had anything like earth-shatteringly good. I maybe go a tick higher, maybe a bit above average, like a 5.5, 6, just because that opener was so good. And SmackDown's always a breezy show. I enjoy the Taker match too. I'd probably go a 6. We got some focus on the show. We got some good matches. It was a pretty solid show.
Yeah, as in-ring wise, that always bumps it up for me for SmackDown. But yeah, I'd go a 6 as well. You had the good Taker show match, and then you had the really, really good tag team match. So yeah, another solid in-ring show. maybe not the best segments or anything like that. As per usual, seems like SmackDown's always the in-ring show, and Raw is supposed to be the segment show, and it's not even doing that very well right now, which is why their scores have been so poor for us lately. But yeah, SmackDown definitely brings it in ring for sure every week.
And they did a decent job of, you could kind of start to see the SmackDown side of the SummerSlam card come together with Kurt and Brock and then the Fatal 4-Way. So you see that being put together too. We will quickly run through some awards. I think these will be pretty easy to pick. Best match, definitely the 4-star tag match.
Yeah, definitely, for sure.
Best moment, I think I'm going to go with the Brock beatdown of Kendrick is probably what I'll remember most.
Yeah, 100%. That was absolutely disgusting, and definitely the thing that stood out the most.
Best show based on our score is going to be SmackDown. LVP, I wonder who I'm going to go with. Lars Estance dodging a bullet, because they actually look pretty good on this one. Trying to think. Oh, Rodney Mack, I think. I mean, he's just a nobody at this point. I think I'm going to go with poor Rod. They didn't even have Teddy.
Yeah, that's true. You could go with Rosie for getting his ass beat by the old lady, but no, I'm just playing. But yeah, Rodney Mack's not a bad choice. I'll go with him as well.
Yeah. MVP, I will probably... Man, it's hard for me because the Brock stuff, I did not like his promo, but his in-ring was so good and kind of reestablishing himself. This is a tough one. I don't know if anybody had blew me away. I mean, the tag teams, obviously, but I don't know if it's where I guess I'll go. We just got everyone in the tag match. Maybe Ray.
I'll go with World's Greatest Tag Team as a duo. I think they did really well in that match. And if I had to give it to one of them, I'd probably give it to Haas. He's really impressed me the last few weeks. He's done pretty good, in my opinion.
Works for me. I like World's Greatest Tag Team. They're great. Some other standouts. I thought not a bad Goldberg night. Not a bad one for Goldberg. Nash, I think, didn't blow me away, but it's nice to see him not be so forced, like in unnatural, and kind of get back to his goofiness. I thought Cena was good, beating down Zach Gowen. Good heel showing. Taker, man. Taker's bringing it in the ring lately, so that was very good. And
show.
You got anybody else?
Big Show a shout out for being the other part of that match that was pretty good. So, yeah, I think that's about it. I mean, Jericho didn't look like a complete loser like he did last week, so that's always good. I mean, I think he still ended up on the bottom of that segment, but he didn't get his ass beat twice like he did last week. So probably a better week for him, definitely promo wise.
Maybe I'll shout La Resistance because it may be the only positive thing I ever say about them. Anyway, so a fun debut episode here on the Backbone Wrestling Network. Glad to be here. It's cool to make the switch and get this thing rolling. Logan, would you like to say, we don't have to go through everything, because if you found this show, I'm sure you found the you can know where to find all the other stuff. But anything, I know we have a few things cooking. Maybe you want to mention?
Yeah, I mean, we have a few shows that traveled over here, like this one did. We have Linking Up Luchas that came over from the North-South Connection. We've actually recorded the first episode, and it might have aired at this point by the time this comes out. But we're starting season 2, and that was a ton of fun. It was you and Sean. Y'all are a team this time, and Schiff and Jenny will be the other team. Kind of switch things up just to so nobody accused me of favoritism or anything like that. So I want to prove that I'm not doing that on that show. But yeah, we started season 2 on that. Looking forward to going through the rest of that with y'all. Highway to the Impact Zone. We recorded our first episode for the Backbone on that as well. Our next episode will be a pay-per-view, so definitely looking forward to Final Resolution 2007, I think is what we're we're going to be watching. So definitely looking forward to getting into that one. And then YouTube Roulette, we will have a special, I think we're going to actually do a special episode on that one to kind of debut for the feed. So we'll be recording that one pretty soon as well. So, but, just check out everything here. We're super excited to start this new feed, kind of centralize all of our stuff together. And, hopefully you followed us on the PlayStation Nation Wrestling feed and the North-South Connection before this, and you'll continue to follow us as we start this new journey.
Yeah, keep up with us. We'll obviously have things in the hopper, the social medias and whatnot. I'm sure will be shared pretty soon. But like Logan said, thanks for making the migration with us if you did, and thanks for listening. We'll be back soon, and we'll continue on this trek to SummerSlam 2003 and onward through the Ruthless Aggression Era. So we will see you then. Thanks for listening.
It happens out in Vegas. It happens in Moline, on the blue blood streets of Boston, up in Berkeley and out in Queens. And it went on yesterday. It's going on tonight. Somewhere there's somebody ain't treating somebody right. And she's looking out for Rosie. She's looking mighty fine, and is walking the streets for Nancy, and I find her every time. And when the street lights for liquor bringing on the night, well, they'll be slipping into darkness, slipping out of sight, all through the midnight. Watch them come, watch them go. Go with only one thing in common: they got the fire down below. Burning down below. Watch them come and watch them go.